Everyone's watching movie commentaries these days, but has no one noticed one glaring fact? When it comes to suspense films, Spain seems to leave certain other countries in the dust. And now, I've uncovered another incredible hidden gem, a niche underrated masterpiece. And in today's video, we're diving into time crimes, Los Chronic Crimes. The story begins in a secluded mountain area. The protagonist, Hector, and his wife have just moved into a new house there. They're busy with unpacking and renovations. But after just one night, strange things start happening. The next morning, while organizing things, Hector stumbles upon a pair of binoculars. Naturally, most people would take a peek through them and act, or is no exception. He walks to the window and starts looking outside. The view is all trees in the distance. He spots something that looks like a utility pole. At that moment, the phone rings. His wife, who's outside watering plants, doesn't hear it despite his calls. So Hector goes downstairs to answer it himself. But when he picks up, all he hears is static. No one speaks. Then the call cuts off. Hector hesitates for a moment, then decides to call the number back. An automated message answers. "This is a secure number. Please leave a message or enter your access code." Confused, Hector replies, "Someone called me from this number." Before he can think more, his wife walks in, suddenly startling in so much that he drops the phone. "What's wrong?" she asks. "Nothing," Hector says. The phone rang, but no one spoke. "It's a little creepy," she shrugs it off. "Probably the workers, no way." Hector replies, "It's Saturday, and this is a brand new number. We haven't shared it with anyone yet." "You're overthinking it," she says, trying to reassure him. "You must be tired." She then offers to give him a massage to help him relax. After a while, Hector realizes something. He hadn't hung up the phone. Their entire conversation might have been recorded. So who was the caller later? Hector goes out into the yard with the binoculars again. All he sees are trees. What could there possibly be to look at? Wait, there's something there. Hector adjusts the focus and spots a woman. She's turned sideways, so he can't see her face. But from her movements, it looks like she's about to take off her clothes. "Don't look, don't look," he mutters to himself, but Hector is glued to the binoculars. Just then his wife walks over. "Give me the car keys," she says. "I need to grab a few things from the store caught red-handed." Hector mumbles a quick response and hands her the keys. After she leaves, he picks up the binoculars again. But this time, the woman is gone, not ready to give up. Hector grabs the binoculars and heads out toward the forest. He walks while peering through them, scanning the area. When he reaches the road, he notices a knocked-over trash can and a bicycle. These details stand out, remember them. He keeps walking up the mountain, still looking through the binoculars. And finally, he sees a pile of clothes. Hector shifted his gaze upward and noticed a pair of feet. There she was, but she'd moved to a different spot. Looking closer, he saw it was indeed a woman, but she appeared to be unconscious. What was a woman doing here in the middle of nowhere? Hector was baffled. Yet despite his confusion, his legs carried him forward, as if they had a will of their own. She didn't seem to be wearing any clothes, which only made the situation stranger. He hesitated, unsure of what to do. He picked up a stick and threw it toward her. No reaction, he threw another stick. Still no response. Hector told himself to look away, but curiosity and concern got the better of him. He cautiously approached her. She was young, a beautiful woman, and from the faint movement of her chest, he could tell she was breathing. But just as Hector moved a little closer, a sharp pain pierced his arm as though someone had jabbed him. Startled, he screamed and bolted, not even catching a glimpse of who had attacked him. He ran as fast as he could, stopping only when he reached the cover of a large tree. Heart pounding, he crouched behind it, then pulled out his binoculars to look back. Through the lenses, Hector spotted a figure searching for him. The person was holding a pair of scissors. Hector adjusted the focus, and as his gaze traveled upward, the figure suddenly turned and looked directly at him. Terrified, Hector dropped the binoculars and took off running again. He didn't stop until he reached the fence, a towering obstacle that left him with no clear escape route. He had no choice but to climb it. But as soon as he reached the top, the fence collapsed under his weight, sending him tumbling to the ground. Though the fall hurt, he'd at least managed to get to the other side. Looking around, Hector realized he'd entered private property. In the distance, he spotted a house. It wasn't far, so he made his way over, hoping for help, but after circling the house, he found it deserted. Every door and window was locked tight. Remembering the figure chasing him, Hector began to panic. They could arrive at any moment. If only he had a car, he thought. He could escape, but there was no way out. In a desperate move, Hector picked up a rock and smashed a window, climbing inside to hide. The house was eerily quiet. save for a radio blaring loud music from a song request show. Still, there wasn't a single person in sight. A piece of paper pinned to the wall caught Hector's eye. It had strange drawings on it that he couldn't understand. When he flipped it over, he found it was a calendar. Feeling slightly more at ease, Hector wandered around the house. He found some medical supplies in the bathroom and used them to treat his injuries. Eventually, he stumbled upon what looked like a laboratory. The place seemed recently used. Tools and gadgets were strewn across the workbench. On the table, Hector noticed a two-way radio. He picked it up and spoke into it. A man's voice responded, "This is private property. Who are you, desperate?" Hector replied, "Someone's chasing me. I had no choice but to hide in here." Before the man could respond, a loud crackling noise interrupted the call, like thunder mixed with static. After a moment, the man spoke again. "Is the person chasing you wearing bandages on his head? I think I see him on the security cameras." Act or frozen fear, yes. "That's him." The man's voice remained calm. "Don't worry, he's far from you right now. I'm at the house on the hill. There's a path outside, follow it. I'll turn on the lights to guide you." By now, night had fallen. Hector stepped outside and spotted a small lit path. He ran along it as fast as he could. At the top of the hill, he saw a house. A man opened the door and waved him inside. Without hesitation, Hector ran in. This house, too, was full of strange advanced equipment. It felt more like a laboratory than a home. "Did you lock the door?" Hector asked nervously. "Can he get in?" The man shook his head. "There's no need to worry, this place is secure. You'll be safe here," pointing to a large machine-like structure in the room. Hector asked, "What is this thing?" The man waved him off impatiently. "Don't ask questions, just get in. He's already on his way up here, and I need to finish preparing. When the door is almost closed, I'll join you." Glancing out the window, Hector saw the bandaged man's car pulling up. He had no other choice without a word. He climbed into the giant cauldron-like machine. As the man rushed to press buttons on the control panel, just as the door was about to close, Hector realized something strange. The man wasn't coming in. He stood there bewildered while the heavy door sealed him inside. Seconds later, the scene shifted. The door opened again. Hector climbed out disoriented, only to find it was now daytime. What the hell just happened? He muttered, scanning the area. He was sure he'd only been inside for a few seconds. He turned to the man, anger flaring. "What did you do to me? Weren't you supposed to come into?" The man looked equally baffled. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "All I know is it's morning now, and whoever was chasing you is gone." Hector frowned, but didn't argue further. He decided to head home. Just as he was leaving, the man called out, "Wait, have you been here before?" Was the tank filled with white liquid? Hector stopped in his tracks, noticing something familiar about the pole on top of the house. Following his instincts, he adjusted his binoculars toward the direction of his home. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. He saw himself, it didn't make sense. The man, now looking through the binoculars, dropped them in shock, muttering, This can't be." A panicking Hector stood up. "I'm going home to call the police." But the man stopped him. "You can't. Don't you get it? That machine, it's a time machine, but it's not fully developed. If the police see two of you, how are you going to explain it?" He grabbed Hector's arm. "Come with me. I'll help you." Then he asked, "What time did you go into the machine last night?" "September 16th, Hector replied. The man nodded. "Good. That means you've only traveled a few hours back." "It's still September 16th, so this can all be fixed." Hector stared at him, completely lost. But the man continued, "Come inside. I'll explain everything back in the house." The man grabbed a calendar and laid it flat on the table. "Look," he said, pointing to the page. "This line represents you moving through time." At this point, he tapped. "You entered the time machine and traveled a few hours back. Now you'll hear this version of you is Actor 2. The you still at home is Actor 1. Actor 1 is like your reflection. He'll do everything you've already done. All we need to do is wait for him to get here." The man paused, then added, "I'll take care of everything. But you have to promise me something. Don't tell anyone about this. I shouldn't even be here right now. I came in on my day off to work on this in secret. If anyone finds out, I'll lose my job." Hector nodded reluctantly. The man hurried after the lab to prepare the machine. Left alone, Hector paced the room until he noticed a phone on the table. On impulse, he picked it up and dialed his home number. This connected to the opening scene. Hearing his own voice answer, Actor panicked and slammed the phone down. Moments later, Actor 1 called back. The phone rang a few times before going to voicemail. Hector 2 listened in horror as the events from earlier that morning played out again. The man overheard and came rushing back. "What are you doing?" he yelled. "I told you not to touch anything. Can't you just stay put?" After a staring lecture, the man said, "I'm going to finish setting up the machine. If you don't want to ruin your life, stay here and don't do anything else." but Hector couldn't stay still. As soon as the man left, he slipped outside. He saw a car parked nearby, so he got in, intending to drive home and check things out. Not far down the road, he spotted the woman from earlier, the one who had been unconscious. Now she was riding a bicycle. Hector slammed on the brakes, stunned. But before he could make sense of it, another car came out of nowhere and crashed into him. The impact sent him flying. Luckily, a tree stopped his fall before he could tumble down the hill. Though shaken, Hector too wasn't seriously hurt. However, he gashed his forehead. Without a first aid kit in the car, he unwrapped the bandage on his arm and wrapped it around his head. Instead, as he caught his reflection in the car window, the look struck him as oddly familiar. At that moment, Hector realized the terrifying truth. The person who had been chasing him all along was himself. After the car accident, the woman on the bicycle stopped to help him. "I'm fine," Hector said, trying to dismiss her concern. But she insisted, "Let me call an ambulance." That would only complicate things. Hector too quickly caught up with her, fainting dizziness, to lure her closer. Noticing his loose bandages, she said, "Your bandage is coming undone. Lucky for you, I just helped my neighbor trim some hedges. Still got my scissors here." As she spoke, she carefully cut and secured his bandages. Seeing the scissors, an idea struck Tortu. He grabbed them, threatening her to follow him up the hill. The woman's bicycle ended up left near a trash bin, the same bin that the red car had knocked over earlier. It was all coming together. Hector too forced the woman to the hilltop and told her to take off her clothes at knife point. This aligned perfectly with the earlier scene, where Hector too had spied on her through binoculars. Naturally, the woman resisted. When Hector too let his guard down, she fought back and escaped. They chased each other through the woods until Hector tackled her, sending them tumbling down the slope. The fall left the woman unconscious. Hector too dragged her to a spot-by rock, removed her clothes and placed them conspicuously on display, with everything set Hector to hit nearby. Soon after, Hector 1 arrived, repeating the sequence of events. As Actor 1 approached the unconscious woman, Actor 2 crept up from behind and stabbed his arm with the scissors. Actor 1, now injured and panicked, retreated to hide behind a tree to force him toward the hilltop house. Actor 2 began making unsettling faces and gestures, staring Actor 1 into fleeing. Having done his part, Actor 2 didn't follow. Instead, he decided to return home. From here, the story takes a new turn. At home, Actor 2 ripped out the telephone line, preventing any further calls. As he climbed the stairs, he heard faint music coming from above. Just as he reached the landing, a table came flying at him, knocking him down. After catching his breath, he mustered the courage to climb again. This time, there were no attacks, but the upstairs was empty. Where had the person gone? The bedroom window was wide open, suggesting someone had fled. Actor 2 stepped outside to investigate, only to hear another commotion from within. He rushed back following the sounds, finding himself locked out of another room. Breaking through the door, he saw someone leaping out of the window. Chasing them to the roof, he saw a figure climbing higher. Actor 2 tried to grab them, but lost his grip and fell. Looking down, he froze in disbelief. The person lying below was his wife. Actor 2 collapsed. Devastated memories of their life together flashed before his eyes. The love, the laughter, the tenderness. How had it all unraveled in just one day? As he sat there shattered, a sudden thunderclap shook the air. The walkie-talkie in his pocket crackled. That thunderclap, it was the same one Actor 1 had heard earlier, when speaking with the man in the lab. Actor 2 listened intently to their conversation, realizing the walkie-talkie had been duplicated during his time travel. Seizing the moment, Actor 2 spoke into the device. "This is Actor to the one with the bandages. Make up a story to lure Actor 1 to the lab. I'll drive there and meet you with that." Actor 2 headed for the hilltop lab, waiting outside until Actor 1 entered the time machine. The man emerged visibly relieved. "I should have anticipated this. But it's over now," he said. He offered to check Actor 2's health, noting he was the first vertebrate to use the machine. But Actor 2 had other plans. He dashed into the lab, ignoring the man's protests. Realizing what was happening, the man quickly threw the battery away. Actor 2's actions were clear. He wasn't here to fix the timeline. His wife was dead, and he couldn't let it in like this. Actor 2 was frantic. He needed to return to the past and save his wife, but the technician blocked him, saying it's impossible. The time machine is out of power. It won't be operational for at least a week. Actor 2 didn't buy it. He grabbed the man by the collar and shook him violently. That's when he noticed something strange. A missing battery. He shoved the man against the wall and demanded, "Where's the battery? Find it now." The man shook his head and muttered, "It's pointless if you go back again. There will be 3 of you. It'll only make things worse." Actor 2 froze confused. How did the man know what he was planning? Actor hadn't mentioned wanting to go back yet, but the battery was already gone. Something clicked in his mind. The man knew exactly what Actor 2 intended. Furious, Actor 2 tightened his grip and growled. What's going on? Start talking. Finally, the man spilled the truth. Actor 2 wasn't the first to use the machine. Another version of him, Actor 3, had already traveled back. Moments earlier, Actor 3 had threatened the man, telling him to act surprised when Actor 2 showed up. Afterward, Actor 3 disappeared, hiding and waiting for Actor 2 to leave. The man had no idea what Actor 3 was planning, but there was one more detail. While setting up the machine earlier, the man's walkie-talkie had gone off. It was Actor 3. Actor 3 had given precise instructions, telling the man do whatever it takes to stop Actor 2 from going back. If he travels back again, he'll become Actor 3 and the cycle will repeat endlessly. Now it made sense. The man knew Actor 2's plans because Actor 3 had warned him. Actor 2 protested, wait a second. You're saying my second trip back has already happened, but I'm standing here now. So who exactly went back? The man admitted he didn't know. It's a paradox we can't resolve yet. Tortoise landed on the walkie-talkie. An idea began to form. If I destroy this thing, he reasoned, then if I go back, I won't be able to contact you. Maybe that'll stop the loop. As he raised the walkie-talkie to smash it, he noticed something on the floor. The missing battery. It felt like a cruel twist of fate. Outside, it began to rain. The wail of police sirens echoed from the valley below, but Actor 2 was out of options. He had to go back. The man reluctantly agreed and powered up the machine. Actor 2 stepped inside and vanished, triggering the events the man had described. Actor 2 emerged moments earlier in time, now becoming Actor 3. He immediately sought out the technician and barked orders. There are 3 of me now. You have to help me eliminate the other 2. He instructed the man to ensure Actor 1 entered the time machine. When the moment arrived, the technician was bewildered, but Actor 3 cut him off sharply. There's no time for explanations. Actor 2 will fill you in when he gets here. Then Actor 3 disappeared into the shadows. Moments later, Actor 2 emerged from the machine, and the same events began to unfold again. But this time, Actor 3 made a different move. He took a car to avoid running into Actor 2. While Actor 2 was busy descending the hill, Actor 3 returned to the lab and demanded, do you have another vehicle? The man directed him to a red truck in the warehouse. Actor 3 climbed in using the truck to crash through the locked gate. What followed was the beginning of the film's chaos. Actor 2 drove off and saw a woman riding her bicycle. Before he could react, Actor 3 came barreling down the hill in the red truck, colliding with Actor 2 and sending the woman flying. But Actor 3 lost control, the truck careening down a slope, crawling from the wreckage. Actor 3 stumbled upon the walkie-talkie. Through it, he gave the technician a final warning, explaining why he was there. The experiment wasn't supposed to start for weeks, but Actor 3 had broken in over the weekend, accidentally triggering the chain of events. Desperate to end the cycle, he told the man to stop Actor 2 at any cost. Then, throwing the walkie-talkie aside, he limped into the woods. There, he found the woman Actor 2 had been chasing. Calming her, he said, was it the guy with bandages? Don't worry, he won't find us here, just sit and rest. As she nodded, Actor 3 collapsed, falling into a deep sleep. By the time he awoke, night had already fallen. The woman said there's a house nearby. We can go there and ask for help. She was right, the house they found was Actor's own home. What happened next was the exact scene where Actor 3 returned home and saw his wife fall to her death. In other words, all the noises Actor 3 heard back then were caused by none other than himself. Once Actor 3 got home, he found his wife and hid her in the storage room to keep her safe. Then he persuaded the woman to change into his wife's clothes. When Actor 2 arrived, Actor 3 knocked the woman down, flipping a table in the process. Later, when Actor 2 came back upstairs, Actor 3 urged the woman to run. This led to the moment where Actor 2 grabbed the woman, mistaking her for his wife because of the clothes. Seeing his wife fall, Actor 2 was devastated and rushed back to the lab to use the time machine again. This was how Actor 2's second trip into the past began. So what happened to Actor 3? After Actor 2 left, Actor 3 brought his wife out of hiding. The woman mentioned that she had already called the police. The two sat together in the yard, and that's how the story ended. Now at this point, you might be completely lost. But don't worry, let's break it down step by step. First, let's address an important point. This movie isn't about a loop, it's linear, and everything that happens in the film is an inevitable result of predestination. The story follows the rules of a predestination paradox. If you're not familiar with that concept, I've covered it in my videos on Primer in 12 Monkeys. The diagram the technician drew in the movie is the key to understanding the whole story. Let me expand on it for you. Here's the full diagram. Feel free to pause and take a closer look. The crucial thing to understand is this: when the movie starts, all the events you see have already happened. As the audience, you are simply watching actors' day unfold, revisiting events that were predetermined. There's no point in wondering when it all began. Here's an example to make it clearer. If the version of you from 5 years in the future built a time machine and came back to meet you today, then you'd see them today, right now. The event doesn't begin 5 years from now. It's already part of your present. Some of you might ask, why does Hector have to repeat everything? Why doesn't he just do something different? As I said earlier, everything is predestined. Every event has already happened, and Hector has no choice but to follow through. But what if Act or 2 doesn't make that second trip back? Wouldn't that change everything? Let's think it through in reverse. If Act or 2 doesn't go back, then Act or 3 wouldn't exist. If Act or 3 doesn't exist, the woman wouldn't have gone to his house. If she didn't go to his house, Hector wouldn't have seen his wife die. If Hector hadn't seen that, he wouldn't have decided to travel back a second time. If Hector 2 doesn't try to save his wife, there's no Hector 3 to crash into Hector 2. Without a bandaged Act or 2, Act or 1 wouldn't have been chased and wouldn't have entered the time machine. If Act or 1 never traveled back, there's no movie. See how tightly everything is connected? The film's logic is flawless. If Act or changes anything, the entire story unravels. That's what makes this movie brilliant. That's all for today's breakdown. Let me wrap up this video with a golden quote by